We begin here in Nigeria, of course, where the health authorities in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, have declared that a Chinese citizen who presented himself at a specialist hospital, Reddington Hospital, on Wednesday, suspected of having contacted coronavirus, has tested negative to the infection. Now, according to the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, who spoke with Arise News last night, he said in quotes, "The likelihood of COVID-19 infection in this particular patient is very low. And the conclusion of investigations and sophisticated testing confirms that there is no case of coronavirus in Lagos State as of now." While giving details of the investigation, the commissioner had earlier explained that the Ministry of Health's attention was drawn to a suspected case of coronavirus at Reddington Hospital. He said that the Chinese citizen who arrived in Nigeria from China 7 weeks ago complained about fever and was immediately isolated. However, after his blood samples were taken to the virology laboratory for analysis, it came out negative. So the commissioner has appealed to residents of the state to please disregard any information about the novel coronavirus that does not emanate from official communication channels of the Ministry of Health or his office. Meanwhile, Reddington Hospital has also assured the public that there has been no confirmed case of any coronavirus at any of its branches. Now, this is important, an important claim to debunk, especially because the nation and the state in particular has been extremely worried over this suspected case or alleged case of coronavirus at Reddington Hospital in Ikeja. But Professor Akin Abayomi has spoken up and has told us to disregard this. Doctor?
Well, I think the clarification is important. And both Reddington Hospital, led by Dr. Lalude, and the Ministry of Health in Lagos, led by Professor Abayomi, they've both done well to respond very swiftly to lay to rest the speculation on social media. Again, when people complain about, the spread of fake news or misinformation and they blame the social media, this is one particular instance in which certain persons were using social media to allege that there had been a confirmed case of coronavirus in Lagos. Now the professionals have come forward to say this is not true. Yes, a Chinese, who had been in China, who had traveled home, returned, and presented a case of fever. According to Dr. Lalude of Reddington Hospital, it was a low-risk case. Yeah. But despite that, they followed the protocol and made sure that, his samples were taken. After taking his samples, the hospital immediately notified the Lagos State authorities and later transferred the gentleman, who was not named, and I think that's very good, respecting the privacy of the patient. Yeah. And it was transferred to the infectious diseases hospital. And when the report came out and it was found to be negative, Reddington Hospital issued a statement to say, we had someone who came with a case of fever, but these are the steps that we have taken. So we see collaboration between that hospital, private hospital, and the public authorities and the Ministry of Health. And both the parties have come forward to say we have nothing to fear. However, there is still this question about the level of Nigeria's preparation. Yeah. I mean, there are more cases of coronavirus now outside China than even inside China. Countries like South Korea, like Italy, like Iran, they're seriously affected. And even in the United States, the president has had to put the Vice President Mike Pence in charge. So we see that, many countries of the world are taking the matter seriously.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like it's almost going to become a pandemic, particularly in those countries that are not prepared. But, to see that in Lagos State, there's a certain level of preparation that has been tested is quite heartwarming. And I just hope that in other states of Nigeria, we will see the kind of dedication, the kind of proactiveness that is being demonstrated in Lagos State. Because it's not just Lagos State alone that is at risk, possible risk.
The whole country.
It's the entire country.
And the entire world, and it's important to note as well that while there are also fears of the coronavirus becoming a pandemic, the executive director of the WHO did speak up and said that it has pandemic potential, but it's not a pandemic yet. So that is a worry, but it's good to see how prepared we are. It does give us a lot of hope, and that's a good thing. We spoke to the NCDC. They told us about their preparedness, their levels of preparedness, and here we are actually seeing it play in action, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector, which is really important. Now, over to our next story. The Nigeria Supreme Court has dismissed an application seeking a review of the ruling, which removed ex-Bayelsa Governor-elect David Leon and, of course, his running mates for lacking in merit. Arise News correspondent Chima Nwankwo reports that the Supreme Court described the applications as frivolous, a waste of the court's time, and penalized the lawyers. Unfortunately, we do not have the VT that we were supposed to play with regards to this. So, Doctor, over to you.
Well, I mean, yesterday, expectations were very high about the likely outcome of, the ruling in the matter of APC and PDP gubernatorial election in Bayelsa State. In fact, there were even fears that there could be outbreak of violence depending on the outcome. Yeah. But clearly, there has been no outbreak of violence. There is peace in Bayelsa State. And we must commend, all the parties involved for not taking the law into their hands and for respecting the ruling of the Supreme Court. The expectation of Doye Diri and his deputy, Lawrence Wuhujapo, was, of course, that they will win. And yesterday, after the ruling, the governor said that he's a miracle governor. But he did something, again, that should be commended. He promised, again, that he will run an all-inclusive government. And that although the ruling has favored the PDP in Bayelsa State, it's not a winner-takes-all. And we hope that it will stand, by that declaration. This is the second time he's extending the olive branch, to members of the APC, who clearly now, David Lyon and his deputy Bilbarakuma Degi Eremienyo, who have clearly lost out. Now, as to the ruling itself, the Supreme Court, in literal terms, put his feet down to say that, you cannot bring vexatious, frivolous applications before the court. And in fact, Justice Amina Ogi, even pointed out that it was regrettable that the applications would be brought at all, because cases that have been determined on their merit, cannot be reversed. Yeah. And that the decision of the Supreme Court is final for all ages, because, Supreme Court decisions become part of the law. It's also a law-creating process. And in the view of our lordship, the only way you can reverse it perhaps maybe through legislation. But in any case, the chapter has been closed on the gubernatorial election in Bayelsa State. And, the justices went further and fined the lead counsel for both David Lyon and the APC and his deputy. And they directed that they should pay a cost of 10 million each, all amounting to about 60 million. And I think that what the Supreme Court tried to do there is to discourage others who may be tempted to come to the Apex Court to ask the Apex Court to, review its decisions. Very good. Well, Bayelsa has been settled now. We're looking forward now to March 2nd, when the Supreme Court will again take a look at the Imo case. Every case will be determined, I guess, on its own merit and on the basis of the application, by counsel. But from what was said yesterday, well, we may begin to imagine, imagine that the Supreme Court will still insist on its infallibility, or if you like, its finality.
Absolutely. And that's what we need to see, because at the end of the day, the Apex Court is the Apex Court, and we can't have a situation where we're running over to the Apex Courts for absolutely everything, thinking that the Apex Court can just reverse itself. It's detrimental to the justice system and what it's meant to stand for. But what I find particularly interesting as well, Doctor, is this discussion the governor-elect is having about an all-inclusive government. You said it's not the first time that he's done that before. Yeah,
when the Supreme Court gave the initial ruling that brought him in, he made a statement saying that he was ready to work with everybody. And now that it's been further confirmed by the same Supreme Court, he's talking about all-inclusive government.
So now it's to see it in action.
I hope that will happen. Yes. Because what is important is peace and development in Bayelsa State.
And that's a very important state too. So,
and hopefully, other stakeholders across the country will have learned their lessons from what has transpired in this case.
Absolutely.
As Justice Amina Ogi pointed out, there must be an end to litigation.
Absolutely, it's important. Welcome welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Before we head over to our Abuja studios for a chat with Senator Aya Arishe, of course, we're now joined by Arise business analyst Rotus Odiri for the latest headlines of today. Good morning. How are you doing?
Rotus, good morning. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you to be here as well. Healthcare and technology is what we're talking about today. There's, if you look at the ecosystem for healthcare, we know that there's a shortage of doctors and nurses and so on and so forth. And so pharmacies have become like the primary point of contact for a number of Nigerians. And so there's a startup, I believe it's called Lifelife Health Care, which is looking at the space and trying to assist a number of pharmacies with inventory management and medical procurement. So a number of the pharmacies that we have in the country act independently of each other. It's very disaggregated. So when they want to place orders for inventory, they do it independent of each other, and they do it through middlemen rather than directly from manufacturers. It drives up their costs, and it's also sometimes they will have to worry about the quality of what they're receiving. So what this startup has done is they've spent about 3 years in the space observing what's been going on, and they want to pool together a number of pharmacies in order to get their orders from them. That is the medical items that they need, because they have a link to manufacturers. So it's almost like if the three of us now are pharmacy companies and we're all ordering independently of each other. The company wants to use their software to onboard yourself and me on their platform, and then they will pool our orders together in order to drive down costs and also get more quality healthcare and quality medicines to Nigerians. They're going to be fueling their growth with a $1 million seed round, which they're able to raise from a number of healthcare investors and angel investors in the space. Those investors, I believe, were swayed by the same model that's happening in Ghana. There's a company called M Pharma. They've been around for, I think, they've been around since 2013. They've raised about $20 million since that period. Most recently, they acquired a healthcare startup in Kenya. And they are on the same model where they've been aggregating pharmacies together and being able to get their orders in one place. So based on that model is what has allowed them to be confident of what this company is doing in Lagos and want to assist them with growth. So it looks like a pretty good initiative to streamline how pharmacies place their orders and get more quality medicines.
Yes, certainly it's a good development, a welcome development, and we hope that the necessary support, for this startup, will be provided on all fronts, particularly from the government side, because it's one thing to have a brilliant idea and to want to introduce it and to get the necessary environment, enabling environment to be able to pursue the dream. Many years back, I reviewed a book on pharmacy by Dr. Fred Adeniga, late Dr. Fred Adeniga, in which he was talking about the future of pharmacy, in Nigeria. And one of the issues he raised after a review of challenges and all that, in terms of prospects, is that, we'll get to a point where, technology, will be part of it. And he was talking about things about telepharmacy,
yes,
which is about the use of technology. And it looks like that future is here.
Right.
And that startup is, a good illustration of how we've reached that future. Now, if you have a startup, which will involve partnership with chemists, with
yes,
pharmaceutical companies and all that, and a big network, maybe it will help us solve, in a sense, not just the problem of cost, maybe also the problem of fake drugs,
yes,
also the problem of easy access.
Right.
And pharmacy is clearly important, because without drugs, there's no healthcare.
Exactly.
Because it's the end of it. When you leave the doctor, you get you have to go and get the drugs. Right. And we've had many cases of patent stores, of quack pharmacists, dispensing. So it's good to see a body of pharmacists, trying to do this. And we hope that at the end of the day, there will also be some kind of e-insurance scheme,
right,
electronic insurance scheme that people can access. And that, people in the rural areas will also be factored in. Community pharmacists in Nigeria have always complained about the various challenges they face. I guess this, startup, partnering with others can provide
It's really dynamic, you know, like there's so many ways that this can scale up. As you were saying, what you were saying about this startup, it also reminded me of another startup in Mexico that I looked at a case study of called Farmacias Similares, where basically what they did, because drugs were so expensive in Mexico and their entire aim was let's reduce the cost of drugs for the average consumer, is they set up pharmacies where they got their drugs as generics, so they were at cheaper prices. But what they also did to scale up is they also introduced primary healthcare centers into every single pharmacy for $2. So even though you can go for free to the government centers and you can wait for 6 hours, here you can come, pay minimum cost of 2 hours. Actually, you're saving more because you're also saving on time. People in Mexico work and earn by the day, etc. And your primary healthcare is sorted here, and then we refer you to your doctor. And I looked at the different ways in which they scaled up on their telepharmacy, etc. And it was really interesting. So it's so positive to see something like this happening here at home in Nigeria. And hopefully we'll have more initiatives in telepharmacy, in telemedicine, etc. This is what we need to see. Healthcare is honestly the only sector that we can really look at and say, hey, come on.
This is where something's happening.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Thank you very much, Rotus.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rotus. See you tomorrow. And now we're going to go on a very short break. And when we're back, we'll be joined by Arise Sports analyst Aaron Akerejola for the latest headlines. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now with sports stories is Arise News sports analyst Aaron Akerejola. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Doctor. I can see that we are twinning today.
You know, I feel left out, but I'm not left out. I'm wearing yellow trousers.
Okay.
Well, it's called telepathy.
Yes, you can say that again. You can say that again. There were celebrations in the air. I said it yesterday, and I'm glad it actually came to pass. And that's the fact that yesterday I decided to go with the bow in the UEFA Champions League. Manchester City took a huge step into getting to the round of 8 by beating the princes of European football, talking about Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu yesterday. 2-1. Of course, Isco got the opening goal for the Los Blancos, but at the end of the day, Gabriel Jesus got an equalizer, and Kevin De Bruyne actually capped it all off with a sublime penalty and ultimately damning Real Madrid. And it was just a heartache for Zinedine Zidane as people celebrated not just what Gabriel Jesus did in the game, because he was tireless, he was literally indefatigable the way he actually ran, and ultimately they celebrated the tactical ilk of Pep Guardiola once again, besting a man he has shared the pitch side with time and time again, whether it was at Barcelona or right now at Manchester City. So complete celebration for Manchester City. The stadium was packed to the rafters, but nevertheless, that did not deter Manchester City, as this man, Sergio Ramos, the captain of the side, was sent off for his 26th red card. And you look at that, that's actually a damning one. He was already celebrating the fact that he had gone a year without a red card, and yesterday, boom, he got a red card, and it actually tilts the tie in favor of Manchester City when they return back to the Etihad 2 weeks from now.
Well, it was a reality check for Real Madrid.
Yes, it was. Massive.
The team is not as invincible as many of his fans think. And again, I mean, it was most unusual for Real Madrid to be outclassed in almost every department of the game, including ball possession. For Man City, yes, it was very good outing. Whatever happens at the end of the day, if Manchester City still drops out at the end of the day, but at least they've been able to demonstrate that, they have a fighting spirit and they wouldn't go out without a fight.
But this actually puts pressure on Real Madrid, because the biggest game in club football, the El Clasico, will be coming up this weekend on Sunday, to be precise, between Barcelona and Real Madrid. And trust me, it actually changes.
Eternal rivals.
Eternal rivals, arch rivals, as you can actually call them. It changes the momentum for Real Madrid going to this particular one, because Real Madrid are already behind with 2 points against Barcelona. So you look at this, and the team will need to pick themselves up and need to dust themselves off real fast. This is where we would actually test the internal strength of Real Madrid and the coach there, because trust me, they're actually treading on very murky waters right now. But before we quickly go,
but their record still speaks for them. I mean,
no, they're still.
They've been European champions 13 times.
They're the biggest club in the world, the most profitable, one of the most profitable clubs in the world. when you look at Real Madrid is everything good about football. And when it comes to club football, I must actually say. So they set the path for others to follow. But right now, things are not really going their way. And quickly, too, there's an update on the Tiamu Kazim that actually passed away due to some police brutality, and things are actually coming down on people. As a matter of fact, okay, there was actually a video that a colleague of mine sent to me, and which actually highlights the SARS officials, who is Olani Ogunsoro, because first of all, the Zonal Intervention Squad of the SARS in Ogun State at the Obada Oku has been disbanded by the IG. This was being communicated to them by the DIG in Ogun State. But more importantly, that man there, because pictures actually surfaced of the father of the boy and the agent of the boy struggling with that particular man, Olani Ogunsoro there. All right, that was at the hospital when they found out that the boy had passed away. And they held the man and they were trying, you can see one of the SARS officials holding a gun and a pistol behind him. They were trying to whisk the man out there. The father was distraught as his son had just learned that his son had just died, and he was actually pushed out of the vehicle, supposedly by that man. But right now we are hearing that he's been dismissed from the Nigerian police force.
Well, he's not only been dismissed, the Inspector General of Police, IGP Adamu Abubakar, has made it clear that he will also be prosecuted.
Which is right.
You know, the first time we discussed this, I said we should commend the Inspector General of Police from the way he took interest in the matter, sent DIG Anthony Obizi to go and investigate, sent another DIG to accompany the governor to go and visit the family. So the prosecution will be important. And then SARS units have all been suspended across the country.
Which is
and again, the father of the victim is claiming that his son's vehicle was vandalized at the police station. That may also be investigated, you know.
Aaron,
okay, well, Aaron, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.